so grateful for today's guest, Julia Harrell. She is a spiritual guide, clairvoyant teacher, reader, musician, all of the things. And we are so blessed to have her in this space. She is really going to sprinkle some magic, some beauty, some wisdom from the other side into this beautiful space that really allows us to tap into our own spiritual gifts and to drop back into alignment, our most soul aligned life, our most authentic life. And I'm so grateful to hear about that journey for her now. So Julia, thank you so much for being here with us. And I cannot wait to dive in.
What an honor. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. So let's time travel. Let's go back in time to that moment when you were a rock drummer in San Francisco and you're living out your dreams. And suddenly you're like, okay, I'm feeling a little detached and I'm feeling like maybe this isn't my most authentic version of myself. What was that journey like as you woke up in that space, or as you started to tap into what could be your deeper levels of that authenticity? What did that look like from then to now and the in between?
Sure. There's even a precursor to that, which was much further back. And that was feeling more out of place as a child growing up in the South. And there's a strong pull to be like other people, but I didn't feel like I was like other people.
Yeah.
I thought about things differently. I'd look at the sky, I'd look at the bed, lie in bed at night, look at this at the ceiling, but I would see the whole galaxy. And I'm going, what? Everybody sees that, right?
Of course. Yeah. And then later we're like, oh no, okay, apparently not.
And just the conversations and the way education worked. You read a book and you remember it. And I thought, this is a strange game here. And I just thought, I don't quite understand this, and just feeling real out of place, trying to fit in. And I remember leading up to the pivot point later on was in school, you're asked what you want to do when you grow up, right? And at the time I thought music. And there were like 2 or 3 options. You could be a band director or performer, or maybe play in an orchestra. I didn't want to do any of those, but I knew I wanted music. So I'm doing this whole unauthentic life all up until then, going to school, getting a master's in music. I always thought I wanted to teach college, which I did later. Wow. And even then I realized that's not the thing I'm looking for either. After finishing college and teaching for a while, then I ended up performing more in San Francisco. I'd been playing jazz and big band and other types of gigs earlier that, again, was not my authentic self. I could do it. It was part of my training and it was fun, but it really was an expression of me. When I found rock drumming, it was like, oh yeah, that feels closer.
Yeah.
But it's hard to make a living. Right. So playing in San Francisco was fun. I was young enough that I didn't have to worry about family and all of that stuff. Sometimes we were paid in beer.
Nice. At the time, you're like, that'll do.
That'll do. We just get out there and get seen, and someday you'll have that big moment.
Totally.
The thing I didn't realize at the time was I was picking up on a lot of internal noise. It didn't dawn on me until much, much later. It was, for me, I was picking up on thoughts around me, telepathic noise. And for some, it's just like broadband. It doesn't really have a distinction until you learn to dial into the different, you could say, radio frequencies.
Totally.
So one way of shutting it all out at that time was just keep drinking that beer and playing as loud as I could rock and roll music.
Totally. Yeah.
All of this was resistance, really, to what I was energetically picking up, and I had no idea what to do with.
Yes.
Probably the pivot point was just one of these this shit stops now moments.
Yes.
Of an internal knowing for all this time leading up to today. I know I'm meant for something else, but I can't see it. I don't know what it is yet. And indeed, in the South, there wasn't a role model for what I do today as a clairvoyant and a spiritual teacher. I looked in churches and stuff. I was very interested in ceremony and different churches and stuff. And I'm like, that's not quite it, not quite it, not quite it. Pivot point was one of these moments where I'm headed in the wrong direction. I'm headed away from my truth by drinking and loud music. It's only going to get me so far. There's a ceiling and I've already hit it. I'm slammed against it. There's nowhere to go. And I need out of here. I was living in San Francisco at the moment and was probably just reaching out to the universe and saying, help, need a course correction. And I think I was talking with a therapist at the time and loved therapy back then. I'd never been before, but the thing was, it helped to locate parts of myself that I hadn't had a voice to yet. So that was part of the story. And through that process, I started to see things. I remember being in the office and I went, whoa, look at like with you, look at these guys. Look at all these guides.
Yes.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Look at all of them. There's a lot.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
And I had this thought, if I say this, is she going to diagnose me with something?
Right. She's going to try to put me on meds. What's happening? Yeah. We never know until now we know on the other side. Right. Yeah.
But I just thought, whatever, I can just decide not to come back if
totally.
Whatever. But that started waking things up, being authentic, putting the beer aside, changed some other things, put red meat aside, and starting getting more on a path of authenticity, really. Who am I truly? The early therapy was like, okay, you're doing this, but, uncovering some emotions and things like that. Once I started waking up and seeing stuff, I had no idea what to do with it. But I'd always been a spiritual seeker. It was like the moment I quit the beer and the loud, I didn't stop playing, and I still perform today, but just switching my attention to more of an internal process. And I had the time and space in my life to do that, that I immediately found this ageless wisdom tradition. I tapped my toes into other ones, shamanic thing, just touching base. And that's got part of it. Ooh, this ageless wisdom, service to humanity. I'm like, ooh, that fits. And I started doing like a 6-year study of that. It's very step-by-step process of opening, not so much opening abilities yet, but starting to activate, calming down parts of myself, the physical body, emotional body, mental body, then focus in the middle of the head, then begin the rest of the, what they call alignment, to various things to do service-oriented meditation. That felt all fantastic. And then I thought, there's still a piece missing. I'm in a physical body. If I'm just always sending out this prayer for humanity, what about this body here? Shouldn't I be doing some more? What about those lower chakras? Don't they do something?
Yes. I remember having that same, like, I kept receiving the word body, body, body. And it's like, oh, okay, I forgot about this thing. Yeah. So I'm glad we had similar awakenings there. Yeah.
Yeah. We get so interested in all this stuff up here, but the magic is bringing that in to manifestation. And that's got to be done by being in the body, not spacing out. I spaced out my whole life before then. And at first I thought that's being spiritual, spacing out.
Right.
It's not.
Exactly.
And then that led to the clairvoyant training. Actually, after 6 years of the service oriented, I started getting into the clairvoyant training, and I thought, I'm not clairvoyant, but this is fun. And it's easy, and I'm just going to take some classes. That was in the 90s. I'm still taking classes. Right. And it's amazing, and I love it. It's really taught me just so much depth about myself, about other people, about the world and universe we live in, by looking at it, not remembering a dogma or somebody else's journey. I can look at that and see, but really through looking and seeing, I get to have the lessons. It's been an amazing journey.
Yeah.
Then I felt truly me.
Yes. And what I think it's really cool that you're speaking into is this idea of, you had some of these gifts when you were younger, right? Of being like, oh, that's interesting. Doesn't everyone have that? And then all of a sudden, as you started to wake up to who you are, you started to develop your spiritual gifts even more and uncover, like, wait a minute, I am clairvoyant. Wait a minute. Even though we think we're not these things, we can be if we desire to be. Anyone can be anything that they desire. And it's this like remembrance of sometimes we had shut those down when we were younger. Sometimes it's just remembering that we have access to them or learning how to access it. And I think that's a really powerful distinction for people to know and to understand that it's not just for the quote unquote gifted. Like we're all gifted in different ways and these gifts are developed. And I think that's something really empowering for people to remember is we don't always have to go outside ourselves to find the answers. Actually, the most potent answers are within ourselves. And let's just start to study how to access those.
Beautiful. Absolutely well said. I couldn't agree more. I like the word you said, uncover.
Yeah.
And the idea that these abilities, we'll call them rather than gifts,
Right.
the
Yes.
abilities are all built in. Like you got lungs, you got a heart, it's built in.
Yes.
You also have clairvoyance, ability for clear seeing, claircognizance for knowing, clairaudience. I'm pointing to the chakra. It corresponds to clear hearing, or telepathy is on that level, clairsentience to feeling. We all have them built in. What I didn't realize at the time when I started that was I thought I'm blind as a bat. I'm taking clairvoyant classes and I am not clairvoyant. This is ridiculous, but I'm enjoying it. It's fun. Except for that person seeing more than me.
Okay. Yeah. The comparison, we were like, meh.
Yeah. What I learned later was I just had filters in the way.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And to not let that stop you as we compare. Really, it's about comparing our journey to ourselves versus outside of ourselves. It's not fair to be like, oh, that person's been doing it for 20 years. I must suck at this. It's like, no, what they're showing you is what's possible.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that different abilities may open at different rates for different people.
Yes.
Depending on what our curriculum is here in this Earth School. What are we learning here? So some people may be more tuned in to listening to spirit, some tuned in more to knowing. I was tuned in more on a knowing level. I just knew things. It didn't make sense why I knew them. I couldn't see for a long time. I felt like 6 months. I'm in class 3-4 times a week and I'm like, I got nothing here.
Yeah. Is this okay? Yeah. Yes.
But I'm signed up for the year, so I'm doing it.
Exactly. And then to your point, which I think is so powerful, is you followed it because it was fun, which meant it was meant for you. Our soul tells us when something's meant for us, when it feels expansive, follow that. If it feels constricting, maybe take a step away. Maybe it's not for you right now, right? It's that idea of let your body, like you were saying, start to tell that story too, of like, this is a tool here for me. When I'm feeling expanded energy in here, it's telling me to start to move towards something versus, oh, there's something here that's like blocking something. Maybe it's not for me, or maybe there's something here to explore.
Right. Very good point.
Yeah.
For me, being able to see energy, my makeup is a change maker. I come in when I love change. Some people not so much. So think about when change comes in, not everybody's ready. Not everybody wants it. So sometimes there's a little mudslinging to the change maker.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. I love it. Let's do it.
So I had a lot of mud on the windscreen and I just needed to clear that off.
I love it.
Then all of a sudden, oh, what's on the other side of the screen has been there all the time. Yeah. Now I can see it and work with it.
Exactly. It's there. It's just about accessing it, like you're saying. So, you know what I think is so cool that I'd love to dig into is this idea of, from a clairvoyant perspective, how can you tell if someone is living outside of authenticity or not their most authentic self?
I can tell you from my perspective, from the training that I have to learn to read energy, it's a step-by-step process. I go into a light trance. I'm looking at, it's like for me, like when you buy something at IKEA and they give you the expanded explosion view of like this bolt goes into that and that.
Yeah.
It's looking at that explosion view on the body spirit level.
Cool.
And so seeing the layers of the aura, the chakras, the body system, how things run in there. So you have the body system, but then there's the higher self that reads on its vibration. The higher self reading at a certain color vibration. And you can see, for me, I can look at that soul and go, They're about love and beauty. And so all of their lessons come through maybe love, relationships, being in relation to something, personal relationships, stuff like that. And oh, they look like a big Easter egg and lots
Ah,
of colors and things. So I'll look at the blueprint of who they are. But then when you look at where they're sitting right now, there might be some like fog banks sitting in their aura of like, here's a gray confusion over here. Here's a red not enough running over here. And so they're trying to be that authentic self of that love soul, but then they bump into these other color fog banks, and they try to get their energy going through that fog bank to express who they are, and they're trying to move through that to get to who they are. What I see sometimes too, though, is the universe listens to where we put our attention. So if, for example, you can read in their aura too, the way people manage their aura, and doing a class next month on that. But if you look at, say, somebody that's got their aura kind of pushed back, and then you might see, well, there's information in the past they're trying to resolve or solve rather than being right here, right now. There's more of their energy in the back. And the universe looks at that and they go, well, here's this problem sitting here in this maybe blue, black color, like an old bruise in their space. You can look at it on a timeline and go, boom, that age or whatever. But it's like an old bruise. Maybe somebody feels like, I didn't have any power at that time. Say they were 4 years old. I didn't have any power when I was 4 years old. And every day, and I'm gonna work on that, and I'm gonna draw about it, and I'm gonna write, and I'm gonna think about it. And our vital creative energy is going to the problem.
Yes.
And then this blue black gets a little bit bigger. And then you see them later. And if again, the more attention is going to, well, I have this problem. I can't be here yet until I solve that problem. It makes sense, doesn't it? I mean, that's kind of strategy that we learn here. However, what I see energetically is if our creative vital energy is looking at the problem, then we actually fuel it. Now it's a little bigger. The universe is going, oh, you like to solve problems. Let me help attract another scenario so you can take a look at it from a different angle. And it attracts another person that reminds you of that, or another place that reminds you of that. Keep in mind, though, it's the universe going, hey, I got you. You want to learn about that? Let's try it with a different scenario. So as long as that's sitting there, the universe attracts to it. So if you ever feel like, why am I a victim to this? I'm driving down the road, somebody cut me off, victim to that, and somebody just yelled at me down the road, or in the grocery store, didn't make any sense. Just take a look if there's an old image there that's out of time, out of place. Our creative energy is going to try to solve it, and it's magnetizing other life scenarios to it. And again, I want to qualify that when I look at it like that, I see their guides right behind them going, I see you want to work on this. I'm here to help you. Let me help you with that. Let's try it with this other scenario, a person that's less scary or something. And so it's not that you're more a victim. It's the universe is trying to help you. On the other hand, what I see when people get to a place, they can work through it to a certain area, to a certain amount, and then spin your creative vital energy towards what you do want to create.
Yes.
And then this other thing starts to have less energy, less vitality, and all of a sudden you don't need to solve it anymore. It's just dissolved. While this thing gets created with our creative vital energy, this is really who I am and what I want to create. So just a reminder, where are we on our journey? What do we really want to create? Do I want to just solve problems? Maybe you're a good problem solver and you can help other people solve problems. So that would be a good creative, use of that. But that's a couple of different ways that looks from a clairvoyant perspective. But
That
for
is
me, for my
so
training.
cool. Yes, exactly. Because it will be different for maybe everyone or maybe just certain people. And so it's this idea of like, it's so cool as you describe it, what you're seeing, because it's so interesting the difference in like the way that I see things and the way that other people see things, that none of it is right or wrong. It's all just so beautiful. But what I love is what you're speaking into is you're able to put the puzzle pieces together on someone else's behalf that they might not be consciously aware of. And that's what's so powerful about leaning into this clairvoyancy, or really leaning into like the way in which you can see things allows other people to be like, wait, yes. And it validates what was there or what desires to heal. And it also allows people to redirect their energy towards something that they can build versus towards something that's breaking them down so that they can rebuild. It's kind of a both and process where it's like, yes, it's here and let's heal it, but let's also spend a lot of energy on what we want to create too, because that's going to create more of that as well. So I think it's kind of speaking into the manifestation process too, which I think is so cool. And what I was thinking about as well is that idea of like, I remember, or I've heard a lot of people talk about this, and I think about some of my past relationships too, where if you're dating someone and then you break up and then you date someone else and you have similar problems come through and you're like, oh, okay, it's the same thing, just a different package, or different person, but I'm still learning that same lesson because it's energetically stamped somewhere that I'm sending energy to. Can I clear it?
Exactly. That's an example of your guide going, oh, great job, honey. Now let's fine tune that a little more with
Yes.
this one.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Oh, so cool. Amazing. Amazing. So go ahead.
I was just
Yeah,
going to say,
please.
look, in talking with guides and stuff and
Mhm.
people's guides, and, we have to be really not hyper vigilant, but discerning. Is that my actual guide or is that just some passerby?
Yeah.
So that's another conversation. But when I'm looking at people's guides and working in this way, I invite them up so that they're in stronger communication, and
Mm.
they've always got our back. They've
Yeah.
always got the person's back. And this idea of here's that thing that I wanted to work on, like looking from a soul perspective too. If you're a love soul, you love learning through relationships. So it's
Mm.
no harm, no foul that you dated that person or that it broke up. Spirit couldn't care less. Like, experiment, have fun, date, don't date, whatever. It's all good as long as we learn from it. If, however, we stayed angry for the next 20 years,
Mhm.
that would be something that the guides would come, hey, come on, you really got to forgive.
Mhm. Yes. Yeah. I am curious now that you mentioned that about knowing if it's the guide or if it's a passerby. Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, there's a lot of games out there. There's
Yeah.
a lot of wannabes that want to come in and they'll say, hey, psst, 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 I'm your guide. Yeah, that's it. I'm your guide.
Mhm.
And they might put on a persona. They may even I've seen this literal. They'll put up a picture of somebody really famous, and they'll go, "I'm this person, and I'm choosing just you to talk to. Like, I'm
Mhm.
Jesus, or I'm Archangel Michael, or something. I'm just going to talk to you." And I would be cautioned on that one. Really tune in that case where they show you a stagnant picture. You could just look at their eyes. There's no movement. There's no life
Mhm.
force. If it were truly
Mhm.
Jesus, you would be so blown away by the love energy. You'd be crying
I know.
for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Or you just feel that expansion within you. Like when he comes in, when I'm channeling and he comes in, it's like, oh my God, it just feels like my whole body is just vibrating. Like
Yeah.
it's so much love. And it's true. I have been brought to tears before. Not every time, but I know that it is Jesus coming in because it feels so strong. Feels so strong. And it feels like love. So what's interesting is I went through my own experience where I was like, I was receiving a message and I realized I'm like, but that one doesn't feel right. And I remember receiving the guidance, then it's not yours. It's this idea of like really getting in touch with our intuition. We're receiving messages all the time, especially if you're connected to being able to hear other people's thoughts. Like, let's say you get on an airplane and you're like, I don't have a fear of flying. And then you get on the airplane and you're like, why am I freaking out? Oh, because I'm hearing everyone else's thoughts. I had that happen to me before I was really fine-tuned into that and protecting my own energy. And so it was like, oh my gosh, okay, it's not mine. Give it back. Like just like really just like saying like, okay, it's not mine. I give it back. It can be as simple as that. And kind of do a pressure test or like an intuitive test of like, if it feels good, it's probably yours, meaning it feels right. Like it feels expansive. It feels like for me, that's what it feels like. Like I get tingles. I get like just this, oh, it feels so yummy energy. That's like, oh, it's right for me versus like it doesn't totally land, but it feels like the thing I should do. It's not mine. It's not mine. It's like the
Yes.
second it feels like I have like question marks or it's fuzzy, take a minute. It's probably not yours. Or maybe there's something there that's kind of yours, kind of not.
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah. And that going back to the Jesus one, it's a love vibration that is not that present here on earth.
Mm.
So it's not the same as with your partner or your kids. That's up there.
Yeah.
This is just out the roof.
Yes.
So yeah, it's really amazing.
Yeah. What are your favorite spiritual gifts to play with? Do you have ones where you're like, gosh, that blew me away? Like, whoa. Like, do you just out of curiosity, what are your favorite spiritual gifts? Or maybe it's like a child, maybe we can't pick our favorite, but is there one that just blows you out of the water when you do it or you tap in? Or do you have moments where you're like, whoa, like that was really cool?
I see miracles every week with
Yes,
people's
let's talk about
transformation.
miracles. Yes. Tell us what you've
It's
been witness to with miracles and healings and because I want people to know that miracles are real. And so often we're like, that there's no way that's possible. I have witnessed miracles time and time and time again. I cannot wait to share more about that on the podcast of just all the miracles that I've witnessed to that I'm like, this could not have happened if I tried. I would love to know, like, what is that for you? What have you witnessed? What have you been a part of? Share that.
it's tapping into the unlimited, isn't it? To the authentic.
Yeah.
And so to me, healing isn't me having a magic wand, although that would be really cool.
Yeah. Of course.
When the Harry Potter books were coming out, I was in clairvoyant training school and I was like,
Oh,
I'm
so
at
cool.
Hogwarts.
Exactly. I know I do that every time we go on walks with my son. He'll pick up sticks. He's like, "What's this?" I'm like, "It's a wand." I'm like, I should probably clarify it's actually a stick. So, whatever.
Reading somebody to me is like picking up a new novel. I don't know what's on any page yet. I
Yeah.
don't know the theme of it yet. I don't know how it turns out yet. It's just looking from a blank space. Part of my training, I have to clear my matches so I don't read through my own story,
Mm.
but that's another thing. I love so many tools, but I'll give you an example of a transformation. And it's a man who wrote like a 5-page testimonial for me,
Mm.
which got lost. I was working at a spa and I would go and I would do a class one evening, and then I would do readings and healings for a couple days. And this man comes in, he's not my normal looking client.
Mhm.
He's like 6'6", tattoos, handlebar mustache, long
Mhm.
hair.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, hi.
Yeah. Let's go.
But what's interesting about that tough persona is immediately I saw, well, he's a love soul too.
Oh, I love that. Oh,
He's got
yeah.
this kind of biker stance, but oh, that I see you.
Yeah. Yes.
Well, he didn't know what he was signing up for. He said, I saw your picture in the flyer and it just clicked. I need to go in there. And I love this place. It's a transformational spa and it's really set for healing and transformation. He said, well, I'm going to try this. And he came in and said, I don't even have a question. I said, okay, great.
Awesome. Yeah.
Let's just see. So because I was in a room with him, I could do a little hands-on healing. And I got to this place on the leg, and I said, well, the energy looks like a knot,
Mm.
and it's not flowing, and it's really harsh, and these are the colors, and this is what it looks like. And the age is here, and well, before getting into the details, he said, I've been to 3 surgeries, and they said I'll never walk properly again. That's all that can be done. I used to do martial arts and all these activities and things, and I thought, okay, well, here, and then I just start like the book. You don't know what's in the book. I don't know yet. Started looking at, okay, it's this color, it has this quality, and here's the age that you were, and it's around a relationship. But the trick is it was not allowed, forbidden. And he went, oh yeah, I know what that one was. And I said, okay, well, this is the resistance to the environment or circumstances saying you can't have this because you did. So it's those energies kind of pushing against each other that make the pretzel in there. So rather than take the person or the problem out of there, release your resistance. So I'm coaching him through forgiveness.
Yes.
He totally got it. As soon as he was able to recognize, and again, he wrote this whole testimonial that was just really beautiful. As soon as he realized, yeah, this was truly about, the circumstances at the time. I realized now as an adult looking at it, I can totally forgive that part of me that was involved. That's always the tricky part. We can forgive the other, but we get stuck a lot on the self-forgiveness. Once he got that, I saw it literally unravel.
Oh, yes.
So I'm just pointing my psychic pointer.
Yeah. My little wand, my finger.
There's a ton of techniques here too, but ultimately it's our own forgiveness, right?
Yeah.
Is how much we can heal.
Yeah, absolutely.
He finished the healing. I don't remember if there were tears. There's so many tears, but he walked up to where he was staying. It was 100 steps to get there. Normally his leg would be really hurting. And he got up there and he realized, wait a minute, my leg doesn't hurt. It always hurts. I'm going to keep walking. And he kept going another quarter mile or something. He's like, I can't even find the pain.
Oh my.
It's not here. And he was like,
yes.
I didn't even know that was possible. I didn't have this problem when I went in.
Yeah.
That was truly a remarkable transformation. And it was all around self-forgiveness.
Absolutely. Yeah. Body chills on that. That's just.
And this was like 40 years later.
Yeah. Oh,
and so we think of, that happened. I put it away. I don't think about that. It doesn't matter if you don't think about it. If you've stored it away somewhere.
Which we do. All of it's stored away, consciously or unconsciously. If we haven't dealt with it, it's there. Yeah.
And if you look, there it is.
Exactly. Yeah. Which is why it's so powerful to have someone who can see before we've developed our gifts, or to learn from them, who are able to see it. And then they point us in the right direction. And we're like, oh yeah. The validation of like, apparently that is a big deal that I forgive that. Sometimes we don't think forgiveness is that big of a deal. We're like, whatever, this person sucks, I'm moving on. It's like, you're not moving. It's still in the cells of your body. It's time to actually take a look at it and just release it. It's like, I always go back to this, but that idea of like taking poison and expecting the other person to die, that anger analogy of like, we're just holding on to the poison when we're thinking about the other person. It's not actually maybe affecting them that much. It's like, it's all us. Let's release it.
That's exactly right. A lot of keywords in there. Validating who we really are. Yeah. And the authenticity again of, if I say I put that in the past, like in his case, teenager or something, 40 years later, I thought I dealt with that. No, it's still sitting there. And the result in this case was 3 surgeries.
Wow. Yes. And it's so interesting because the surgery, if we haven't dealt with it, keep going. Yeah. Yes.
Well, it ultimately had so much energy on it, and the idea of forbidden. And he's like, but I want it, but it's forbidden, but I want it, but it's forbidden. And those energies in conflict kind of squished together and formed this pretzel looking energy.
It's so interesting that you mentioned like the pretzel, the knot. I remember there was a healing that I did on myself. I enrolled in this like emotional intelligence training. This is before I really knew anything about my spiritual gifts, or to the extent that I know them now. And so I remember the exercise itself, so I had an abusive nanny and I could not remember her name. I had like blocked it out. And I remember in this exercise feeling like it finally started to come out. The layers started to come out. And I remember physically feeling something untie within my sacral and realizing like, oh my God, it's been tied this entire time. And I had no idea until I actually physically felt it untie within my body. It was so interesting. And it was like, and I could remember her name. And all of a sudden it was like, oh my gosh. And it was like so freeing because I had stuffed it down and I was putting more and more layers on top of it. Like, oh, that doesn't exist. And the second that onion taken off the top layer, next. Oh, there's the core.
Yes.
Then it unraveled. And I was like, it was like, honestly, thousands of pounds released from my body. It was wild. It was so cool. So I guarantee, I don't know if he felt it unravel or not, but I can tell you I physically felt it. And obviously something did because he was walking with ease after that. How cool.
Yeah, that point of getting to a core picture, that's something that I'm interested in helping people uncover. And so, different clairvoyants have different specialties. Some people may love reading past lives, or somebody loves reading relationships. A very select few may be good at future forecasting. So we have different specialties. I love looking for those core pictures. And so hopefully I'm attracting people that are interested and ready. I have to look at how much they can have and not give too much, because some people, if you give them too much, then they leave screaming.
Yeah. It's baby steps. Yeah. Like sometimes we are consciously don't want to know things yet. We stuff it down so deeply that it really is an unlayering of like, I think that's why I always go back to that onion, because it's like, we can't go to the core. We haven't dealt with the 50 layers on top of it yet. Like, let's just slowly come in. There's like some safety in that.
Safety is the word I was going to say too.
Yeah.
If like a Jenga game, if you take off a couple of pieces at the top and they go, oh, okay, well, I'm safe with those removed, because there's been an identity associated with the pattern of the Jenga game.
Yeah.
And then you go, okay, a couple pens less. Okay.
Exhale. Yes.
And then maybe 2 years later, all right, today I'm ready. The stars are aligned. And external circumstances are in place. Let's go for that core Jenga thing. Then we don't have to necessarily do all the middle ones. Pull out that key pen.
And the more you do it and the more you lean into a space that you know and a person that you know is safe, that's when we actually create that safety to actually let ourselves release it too, like you were saying. I think the person, the setting, all that stuff that you were mentioning as well is so important. Follow your intuition. Don't just look someone up and be like, yeah, sure. My biggest thing when you're when you're connecting with a healer or a clairvoyant or anything like that, don't walk into a storefront. Connect with someone who you know, love, and trust that's maybe been to this person before, that you then are like, okay, and I have a feeling about this person, a good feeling, expansive feeling. Let me step in. Like, follow your intuition there with your healers. Like, it's important that you do, because that's how you create the safety to actually heal.
Yeah, thank you for saying that. I think that's really important. There's a lot of shiny buttons out there on the web. And they may have the facade or the words of it, but I think we have to really tune in. And in this training, I have ways of telling a truth from a lie. So I would actually read it rather than feel it. It's a little higher space. And then I can see, oh, I would have thought it would have been this, but when I look at it, whoa, it's really clearly. The yes goes up. A different story here is I had a woman coming in. This is more perhaps in the realm of the type of work that I do, but still paying attention to your intuition and how sometimes there can be, let me just add an additional addendum to that. Yes, always follow intuition. This woman was coming in for a reading and a healing, and I was going to see her in person. It's literally one exit to get here. This is a business owner, very capable, very tuned in, very spiritual individual who's lived in the area for a long time. She couldn't find the exit. And her first thought was, well, it must not be meant to be. Well, she called me from, just down the road. And she kind of really confused. She noticed she was confused. And in that confusion, there was the thought that, well, if it's not flowing, then it must not be meant to be. I took a look at her space and I saw there was another energy plugged into her crown trying to persuade her to go
Mm.
in another direction because I was going to kick that idiot out of her head.
Yeah.
That was not a true guide that was
Hmm.
in her head. So back to the earlier conversation, how do you know if it's a real guide or not? I'll ask Supreme Being, come in, is this actually their guide or not? I'm not deciding that myself. And say, okay, if it's not their guide, go ahead and move them along to their next station, their next life lesson. So we have techniques for clearing that stuff out. So I cleared that being that was getting in the way of her coming to get her answers. So she, the owner of the body, signed up for the session. She wanted to get it, and I'm like, there's a little diddler in the space. So
Yeah.
I went ahead and pulled the diddler out and grounded her space, and all of a sudden, oh, I see it. It
Yeah.
was immediate. She found her
Wow.
way and had the session.
Incredible. Whoa. Isn't that so interesting? I do think that is such a powerful thing to breathe into the space because those things don't desire to be cleared. So they will cause some confusion. And so I think there is something to be said about, but she did feel something when you said that to her. There was a validation within her. Oh, she's right. So when you shared
Yes.
that information with her, there was a part of her that knew that you were right. And I think that's something to connect with too. Like, don't just be like, take someone's word for it. Like, hey, there's something there. Like, give me $3,000 and we'll move it. It's like, well, wait a minute. Does that feel right to you? Like actually connect in and say, like, does this person feel authentic? Does this person feel real? Does this person feel good? Even if there's a part of me that's feeling a little confused, start to follow that too.
Yeah. Making a decision out of confusion can be very tricky. For a
Mm-hmm.
case like that, anytime, I mean, I always just kind of go to Supreme Being too, rather than trying, if I can't figure it out in my own intuition, I'll tap in on that level and of that sort of ultimate thread of knowingness and wisdom. So
Yeah.
just tapping into that ultimate wisdom and going, is this, ask a really specific question, like a yes, no question. So
Mm-hmm.
it's not like, what should I do? And the universe goes, I don't know. What do you want to do?
Yeah, exactly. You tell me.
What kind
Right.
of experience do you want to have? I don't know.
Right. It's not right or wrong. None of it is. What are you ready for? Not even what are we ready for? What's next? Yeah, we ultimately decide that. But you're right. The yes or no question is so helpful and the clarity there. Yeah.
So working with other people too, it's learning to ask for good guidance too
Yes.
of what's most helpful for the client, for the
Hmm.
person I'm working with. So learning to ask good questions for ourselves on our own path is really key too. If we go, what should I do? I don't know. What do you want to do? Do you want to go
Hmm.
swimming today? I don't know.
Right. Yeah. 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 Yeah.
You want to go
Yes.
have a cupcake? I don't know.
Yeah. You're like, well, all of the above. Wait a minute. Yeah. Cool. Well, so switching gears a little bit, because this is so interesting, but I'm curious when you think about like some self-care rituals for people who are in the space that are either highly sensitive or healers or that are kind of, if they're drawn to this podcast, there's a reason why they're here now. What are some exercises or some self-care rituals that are really potent that you use for yourself or that you recommend for others that you feel like would be important to breathe into the space?
Yes, excellent. Sensitives, intuitives, especially sensitives and empaths. Not that I would call myself empathic. I get tricked up on the wording because it has so many connotations, but people that are picking up energy on a lot of frequencies, let's say, and
Yeah.
feel overwhelmed by it
Yes.
and maybe limit their lives by it. That's my specialty, and that's who a lot of people come in.
Yeah.
Yeah, day-to-day steps. It's really critical to have good, clear grounding. If I'm spaced out, then I'm not in the body to control it and command it. That's when some of the flybys can get more engaged, and then you get a little more and more off your path.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really so a daily practice of grounding to be fully here as the awareness in the body, not the awareness floating around half a mile up,
Yeah.
but being the awareness right here, right now.
Mm-hmm.
One, grounded. Two, all the way to the center of the earth, not down just a little bit, but really solidly grounded, bringing my purpose into manifestation that way, you could think of it.
Mm-hmm.
And three, tuning into source. So something bigger than me, the sort of, you could call it the age, infinite wisdom, if you want.
Mm-hmm.
You can call it God if you want. You can call it source. You can call it higher self. That's technically different, but higher than my ego
Yes.
persona.
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
When I tap
Yes.
into that first, then the day flows. If I hit the ground running, then I spin in circles and the day takes longer. Then I get
Yeah.
more and more off center, off path, and things take longer. So taking that
Yes.
extra, even 10 minutes to tune in. Am I in my space fully? Me as the higher self in the space. 2, am I grounded? 3, am I connected with source? I would say are 3 go-tos.
So powerful. I think as any high achiever would know, or anyone really, but really, especially you think about the highly sensitive or the high achiever where they're like, I've got this goal and I'm running, but sometimes we're running 300 miles to the left of where we're meant to go. And it's like, wait a minute, if we could just ground in and start to take inspired action versus just taking action, that is when everything changes. When we're taking inspired action that's in alignment with who we are, our purpose, our authentic selves, we make so much more traction than when we're just running all day long. And suddenly we're like, 2023 just passed me and I feel like I'm in the same spot. It's like, well, you just ran in 9 different marathons and it brought you back home to where you are now, instead of being like, wait a minute, let me focus in and see what that divine intention has for me, that divine intelligence has for me. Let me ground it into who I am right now so I can action it. Because this is us actioning what we're receiving. They have to work hand in hand. We can't just receive it and not do anything with it, or we can't just be here and just run. We got to really connect in and say, where do you want me to run? Where do you want me to walk? Where do you want me to sit still? That's so powerful. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. It's the difference of waking up and being the body versus waking up and tuning in and being the higher self. If I'm
Yeah.
being the body, it's a much lower vibration, right? And it
Yes.
comes with a lot of limitations. If I'm
Absolutely.
being the higher self, that's where the magic and the miracles and the day flowing and going even better than expected. If I'm not being the body ego, but I'm being more connected to the authentic me, the higher self.
Yes. Yes. I love it. So tell me, how does one develop their spiritual gifts? If someone's like either just starting or they're like, I'm highly sensitive, but I don't know what the hell to do with it. Like, how does one start to actually develop their spiritual gifts?
I really recommend training. It's helpful to have a coach to take a look. Okay, actually, your awareness is here. You want to have it more here. When you do this, it pushes that way. To just give those coaching. This is a step-by-step method that I learned. I'm not making this up.
Mm-hmm.
So it's an established method, and I pass it along as well. So there's a step-by-step protocol. Those are the first 3 parts of learning how to align in the head where your awareness should sit to activate your clairvoyance and claircognizance. There's ways of running the energy. There's ways of adjusting the chakras and so forth, so we don't pick up so much on a feeling level, but we can more see and know. It's a step-by-step process. So I mean, doing it on your own, it's I guess you could, but for the type of training that I've done, it really works good with a coach.
Absolutely. Having the guidance, having some sort of like spiritual guide, a spiritual awakening guide, or whatever it is, having someone who can just be like, hey, because they're pointing out our blind spots. It's like we're just
Exactly.
kind of, again, running, or we're just kind of tapping into just this area. And sometimes it's like, oh my gosh, now that I moved the needle like just this much, like an inch or a centimeter, whoa, it's activated now. And so tapping into someone who can see that, who can guide us, suddenly things happen so much more quickly. This is in all areas of life, not just spiritual gifts, but every area. When you have a mentor, someone who's done it before, or someone who can see things from maybe a higher perspective or just a different perspective, or someone that you admire, tapping into a mentor or a guide or a coach changes everything. That's how I learned how to unlock all my spiritual gifts that I didn't even know I had, many of which even a year ago. And those have all come online. And it's like, I wouldn't have known that had I not worked with a coach or a mentor that was like activating them. Sometimes even just being in their presence activates it on, like, it was like a dormant DNA thing that just came online and now it's here because I knew how to access it. So couldn't agree more.
Yeah, for me, when I first started in the ageless wisdom tradition, I was doing it on my own, reading a book. This was literally before internet and all that, and before
Yes.
I think there were cell phones, flip phones or something.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I'm
Yes.
reading a book and I'm doing the meditation. I read a little bit, meditate, and then I go back to the book. Okay.
Yeah.
There were a lot of things going on that I didn't realize doing it on my own. One, I was in complete effort. And if you're
Mhm.
working from spirit space, there's no effort. If I'm working
Yes.
from body, that's total effort.
Yeah, that's so
Two
true.
was two was I was meditating and leaving my body. I
Mm,
thought when it said align with something, it meant go out of your head and go up 15 feet. I
mm.
didn't know that technically yet. So these are things I learned later, but I was wishing so bad I had a coach. Like, can one of these masters just come poke me on the shoulder and whisper in my ear, I'm not hearing you. I'm not hearing you. I'm straining to hear them, you know?
Yes.
So when I found myself in this style worked for me because it's very step by step. I work well with a step by step.
Hmm.
And having a coach take a look at me one on one and go, oh, move your awareness here and now do this and then move a little bit over here. And it's just like you're coaching somebody to hit a ball, you
Hmm.
know, and have the best performance for their makeup. And, you know, some people, they may be more aware on a clairaudient level,
Yeah.
some people of hearing guidance. Then you want to be real discerning. Who are you listening to?
Hmm.
You know, and there's ways to check that. Some people may, usually the first ability to wake up is feeling. I can
Hmm.
feel things. I feel that person's worried. I can
Hmm.
feel that person's angry or happy or whatever. That's
Hmm.
usually the first one to wake up, clairsentient, second chakra. And so validating that, but then let's not stay there. Let's then go up to where we're working as humanity, where it's more seeing and knowing truth versus just feeling it. Because if you're just feeling somebody's anger, for example, now you have anger, it hasn't helped that person, but now
Hmm.
you have to deal with the anger energy that's,
Hmm.
it's like a string vibrating on a
Hmm.
frequency. So like there's anger in the room and it vibrates at a frequency, let's say it's 427 hertz or something.
Hmm.
And then as a sensitive, you, oh, now I'm matching it. And
Hmm.
now, I get, it's anger. I can tell that's anger. This is where we start a lot of times. And you can see the limit of it. It doesn't have information about how and why is he angry and how do I coach or how do I help this soul? So, you know, if we start there, then we want to gradually turn that down and be able to more look at a person and see and know, oh, he's angry. His favorite dog just died. Oh gosh, yeah. And you can see the whole thing versus having to experience it with him.
So
So
true. Yeah. So what I'm hearing you say is as we develop our spiritual gifts, they actually become easier to quote unquote, I don't even know if the word is manage, but something along those lines where it's like, then we're aware of how to not take them in and have them become our own. And
yeah.
then it makes you be able to be like, oh, I can differentiate what's theirs, what's mine. Now I can actually really help this person without taking it in as my own.
Yes, you have this great way of putting things
Thank
together.
you. Thank you.
It's perfect that you're doing the podcast and teaching here, but it's exactly that. That's where we all start. So not to invalidate anybody that's feeling energy. You're feeling it, great. That's clairsentient,
Mhm.
and that's an ability. It has value, and it's served me well. I'm a super clairsentient.
Mhm.
I
Yeah,
can
same.
I could feel a Wi-Fi if I wanted to.
Mhm.
I can feel somebody coming into the room. I can feel a being coming into the room,
Totally.
you
Yeah.
know, but then also sensitivity, like my teeth are sensitive
Mhm.
and
Oh my God, that's so
my
funny.
skin is sensitive, you know, it's like I am
Yeah.
sensitive.
Yeah. I've never even put those together. Interesting.
Digestion, a lot of times there's digestive issues that the
Totally.
higher refined a person is, or the more tuned in to all these frequencies on different bands of energy. So these are
Mhm.
information bands. Here's an information band on emotions. Here's
Mhm.
an information band on thoughts, mental
Mhm.
thoughts. Here's an information band on deceased loved ones communicating. Here's an information band from your spirit guides, you know. So they're all different frequencies having and they're carrying different, like a radio band with different information on each one. The sense of, for a sensitive, you might pick up multiple bands at one time, and then it can feel overwhelming. But the thing is, don't get sidetracked by that. Awesome, you have these abilities in you, and the trick is then get yourself in some training and learn how to harness that, wake it up, get in command of it instead of it pulling you off center. Like, I can't go to the party, I can't go to the event because I feel too much and it's overwhelming. You absolutely can. There's ways to adjust that. It's the first ability to wake up very often. So validate it, love it, and move forward. Don't stay there.
Yes. How would someone, let's say, walk into a room or a party and kind of shut that off in a way that would be supportive? Because I know that if you're listening, you're a highly sensitive person, most likely. I'm positive there's about 9,000 people saying, how do I do that? Is that something you can leave us with?
I'll say this, there's more, there's a lot of tools coming to mind. Like, I have a whole series of training on that, but here's a quick one. Is you can ground the room you're walking in. So all that energy that you're picking up doesn't come through your personal space, but put a grounding cord on the room.
Ooh, powerful.
Like 5 feet across. And with the intention that everybody's energy, and maybe if you're tuned in on an emotion level, set that grounding cord can collect their emotions and just like funnel down like a lightning rod on a building, reroutes energy. But if you're tuned in on a thought level, you're aware of, oh, that person thinks I look great today. Oh, that person thinks I'm an idiot.
You're like, great.
Okay, fine.
Yeah, exactly. That's yours, not mine. Moving on. Yeah,
if you're tuned in on that level, then you can set the grounding cord, to also let go of people's thoughts on that mental level. And that gives it a space to go instead of magnetizing to the brightest thing in the world.